This is time for free your mind and your soul. Yo, half the story has never been told. Ladies, you got to demand what you want, and what we want is respect, right? Yo, just sit up on the track, I know so you have to feel it rhymes. Freedom every time for the sisters. Check this. Watch this.
Here we go now. Listen, if I'm boom boom rule, I be the ruler like Slick Rick. Get with this quick-witted Adidas wearing chick. Papa got a brand new bag. Mama got a brand new Jag or go tag. I ain't no old hag. I represent not only in the kitchen, in the bedroom, but also in the boardroom. So give me more room. Deny my opportunity, you in jeopardy. Yo, set me free, don't hinder me, let me be.
I'm fighting for freedom, I got the heat in case you need them. Straight soldier, ain't nobody told ya. Hold up on them lies, I know your games and your plans.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Book Slam Extra. I'm your host Jules. I hope everyone has had a wonderful week. I am an author of dark fantasy, science fantasy, dystopian fantasy, sword and sorcery, Dungeons and Dragons, and everything else to do with that. I love all that kind of stuff. I also are on here every week and on a Sunday, and I also run a Discord just for writers, authors, poets, and beta readers. And I also do publishing as well. And I just hope you have had a wonderful week. I really do. My back is killing me. I have spent the whole week gardening. And digging. My dog has tried to help, but I'm not entirely convinced that it was helping. I wanted to talk to everyone tonight about tropes, because tropes I've seen come up again and again on YouTube and other places, and lots of people have a lot to say about them, and I have my own opinions about them. And that people tend to have a strong opinion about the idea of having tropes in their stories. And I wanted to sort of like delve into whether tropes were something that were important, relevant, necessary, interesting, or anything like that. So I'm going to welcome to the stream my lovely sidekick. Hang on a second.
I like
hello.
Day. I love that.
Say that again. I didn't hear any of what you just said because you were so quiet. I'm turning my computer now. Say that again.
I said I love being the sidekick. I'm happy to be the sidekick. That makes me very happy. I like that.
Do you know what? It is the sidekicks that make it go. So it's all right. You're okay. The sidekicks are awesome.
So what kind of gardening did you do this week? That's exciting. I'm sorry your back is sore from it, but I get that totally. What were you doing?
So we had a tree that got blown over in the week. And we had an old shed that was like 50 years old that was literally disintegrating at the sides and everything. So me and my son have been basically working on that.
Nice.
But yeah, it's basically lots of chopping, lots of hammering.
Hard labor. Good times.
Not nice digging like little plants in and sowing seeds. Proper banging.
Serious
wood.
Work. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Kooky. Well, I'm glad you're able to get all that stuff done. That's important. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Absolutely. And we've got a shed that's going in its place, well, sort of, and I'm going to rearrange it, a new patio and stuff like that. So it's going to look really nice. Yeah, it's quite nice. It's quite nice to be able to get out there and do all that. So yeah. But apart from that, I'm fine. How has your week been?
Good. I've been working. I've written 2 books. Hi, I'm Adam Andrews Johnson. I've written these 2 books, The Mantis Variant and The Mantis Equilibrium. And they're both horror, dystopian, nightmare type stuff. And I've had fun going back. I've written the 3rd book and edited it, but I feel like it still needs some work. So I've gone back and I'm rereading book 1 right now. So I'm having an enjoyable time seeing all the horribleness that I cause in that book. So yeah, I also write mellow fantasy that's more happy and joyous and has like battle adventure type stuff. But yes. That book focuses on human sexuality and queerness, and Jules is releasing it through her publishing company, and we'll have that to share with folks next year. So we're really excited about that. 2024. Whee! But in the meantime, yeah, the Mantis books are scary and horrible, and there still are a bunch of queer people in it, but that's not the focus of the story, which is what the starting end is all about. So yeah, that's who I am. And your bangs look fabulous, Jules, by the way. I love your bangs. They look so good.
Yeah, I've been wanting to change for a while, and what's really cool is it's brought out the actual natural color of my hair, which is actually dark strawberry blonde.
Looks lovely.
So this is completely natural, which is nice. Yeah, so thank you very much. I'm also going to invite to this stream our wonderful other co-host who has been giggling away. Hang on.
Reese, you too. Yay! Right. I saw you in the chat a second ago. Hi, Reese.
How you doing?
I'm good. Look, I like the bangs too, because of course I just yell "hello bangs" in the background.
Thank you. How are you? Did you have a nice week?
Oh, it's been busy. Oh my gosh. New job, working on the book. Literally was in the middle of cleaning and stopped to work on the book. So yeah, it's been insane. Dropped the pre-sales on Tuesday. So pre-sales for book 2 are live.
Excellent.
And what's it called again? Remind us.
This is book 2 of the Tropes series, and it is called Released. And it will be available in July. Fingers crossed we're going to stay on task. July is release date for book 2. So, of course, if you have not gotten book 1, what you waiting on? Go ahead and get caught up, because book 2 is going to have you jumping for joy. Come on.
And it's a very, very nice. I like book 1 is raunchy, shall we say? Now, whilst we're doing this, would you both at some point put your links in the chat, and I will display them for the whole user to see them, and then we can share those. And I actually didn't show you my ones. These are the old front covers of my books. They're actually being in the process of redesign at the moment, but to kind of go. So they're my ones. I haven't got my children's ones right next to me. They're like over there. But I've also got 2 children's ones too. And got 3 more on the way. It sounds like we're having children, doesn't it? I have one on the way. It's July.
Well, they're our book babies, so technically they are our children.
I'm preterm.
I think I'm postpartum right now. Oh God, we're ridiculous.
I love it. They are our book babies for sure. Now, what's your thoughts about tropes? Because like I said, I have my own opinion about them, but everyone else seems to have their own opinion as to whether they are something that needs to be included or should never be included, or relevant, or lost their meaning, or a whole host of other things.
Well, I feel like it depends on where. I think it depends on what you're writing. In some cases, we all tend to fall into, what is the word I'm looking for? We tend to fall into the common, the norm when it comes down to our writing, when it, in general. So depending on what you're writing, if you're in fantasy, if you're in romance, if you're historical fiction, there's certain things that are going to fall into place. So you can't escape it. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with that, because it fits in certain scenarios, and then sometimes you can kind of go without it.
Yeah, I agree with what Reese was saying, that in our own genre, we have things that are sort of automatic. It's hard to have a sword and sorcery story without a sword. There's going to be a sword. It doesn't have to be a magic sword, which is more of a trope, but you're going to have sword fighting and swords and stuff like that. Like, when you said we were going to talk about tropes and cliches and stuff, I was like, well, my story has got humans with superpowers in it. That's a definite, category. It's its own whole thing. So, but that's what my story is about. So I kind of have to have that trope in it. But yeah, this is kind of related to the we don't write a news story. We're writing something that's been inspired by other things that have come before us. So yeah. What about you, Jules? I
must admit, I have I agree. I think that it depends on what the genre is that you're writing in, depends on which kind of tropes then link to that genre. So in my one, which does have heavy sword and sorcery stuff going on in it, it does have a sword that happens to have magical powers, but they're not magical powers like you'd see in a wizard magic realm. It's magic powers that link more closely to the Jedi Knights. It's kind of like between the two. And yeah, I've got like a, the mentor who kind of looks after, the weak warrior who's in her nurturing part. I've got the enemies who become friends and the frenemies. And I quite like tropes to a certain extent, because I think that they allow the reader or the watcher, if it's a movie or a TV show, to feel secure knowing that there's going to be something that might happen that they are expecting, but have it as an unexpected way it's been written in. So, for example, I'm just trying to think, like the superhero films and superhero stories. They have a superhero. If it's aimed at kids, for example, they have a hero who's down on their luck, who's had bad luck, and all these bad stuff happen to them. And then suddenly this person enters their life and it changes their life forever, and they decide they're going to become a superhero. But then they're caught up, like Spider-Man, with that dark side where he's a teenager still, and he has to get rid of knowing everyone, and so there's sadness there too, but he always saves the day in the end. And I think having that knowledge that the superhero will succeed, but it's the how will they go about doing that? That's the exciting part. But
that makes sense. That makes sense though, Jules, because I'm thinking about it from the romance perspective. To call something a romance, there's percentages that they work with. There's so much has to be storyline, and then the rest of it has to be true romance. And if not, it's not a romance. So there's things, there's elements that you have to present. But usually with the romance, there's always a happily ever after. There has to be some happy ending to this particular story. And that's one of the main features of it. So it's one of those things where you can write. I'm just jostling all around today. You can write a different, you can write it in different ways. You can figure out if they're going to be friends to lovers, this type, this that and the other one. But it all comes back down to there's specific elements that have to be involved for it to be a specific thing.
Well, this conversation's actually made me think of something else. Listening to you two talk real quick, I think people tend to talk about tropes in a negative way. They're like, "Oh, I recognize this trope. Oh, whatever. I've seen this before." Whereas most of us writers are like, "Ooh, how can I be inspired by this thing that I liked? How can I do it differently? How can I tell this story new?" Like, I think we embrace tropes in a way that watchers who aren't making their own movies or readers who aren't writing their own books might see the trope and be like, "Oh, this is what's happening." Like you just said, Jules, I know exactly where this story is going. And we like to take those tropes and then flip them on their head and turn them upside down. Because you're right. You mentioned the superhero thing. My superhero story is not written for children, and it's not about superheroes. It's about people who have developed powers, and then you can go hunt them and kill them and take their powers from them. So it's horrible and terrible and murdery and stuff. So I turned that story on its head. Yeah.
You really did.
I knew exactly what trope I was getting into when I started. I knew the trope immediately when I got into it. Yeah.
Yeah. If I may share a little bit about the project that we're working on. Some of this little spoiler here. So Adam and I are working on a collaboration story with the potential for it to become a series. And there's quite a lot of tropes in that, isn't there? With, the innocent person, the innocent bystander, the innocent,
we've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other side of the story, the character who's after them, and a lot of usable, totally recognizable tropes that we're gonna twist and turn and do completely differently. Yeah,
absolutely. And in my sort of adult series, my character, she she would be classed as a hero, but not a hero that went in willingly, a hero because she just feels she has to, because she doesn't know any other way. And so, but her hero aspect is completely traumatized with mental health problems. And so we get to see a much darker hero who has dark thoughts, who has dark experiences, who tries to get it right and gets it wrong so frequently. So yeah, I've tried to do the sort of like the fantasy, dark fantasy elements, but with that more modern twist with the mental health aspect, because I personally find that you, with the superheroes thing, just as an example, you see them get injured or someone dies and they're absolutely devastated during that scene or in the scene immediately after. But then after that, it's like, yeah, let's go, chaps. And it's not realistic. And so I wanted to try and create characters that actually have that realism attached to it, but also stick to tropes, because it's about, what is it, about 7? Is it, am I right in thinking there's like 7 main style of stories you can write, and then your story kind of based on those? So you have like, I don't know, just trying to think now, like wizards, there's a particular method there, or historical fiction, there's a particular method there. But there's like the hero story, there's the anti-hero story and all that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yep. Oh yeah. I agree completely. Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm not sure I'm explaining this properly.
No, definitely. That there are, we all have written our own story, but we all are within a genre, and each genre has its uniqueness that all leads up to a few different things that are different. Yeah.
All of those subcategories make you completely insane.
Yeah. I've actually got a book. I can't remember the name of the author, but he's an author. He's written other books, but this book is about how to write. And in the first like double page spread is this whole like a thought image of every single like science fiction fantasy thing that's come out of the original bits, like Dracula and stuff, and it goes all the way through time to modern day. It's really cool. I'll see if I can find a picture of it somewhere. I just can't remember the author. I'll have a look for it and see if I can find it and put it up. It's really interesting how it all links together, but it's mainly just on those particular genres. So yeah. Anyway, we have got some lovely guest authors who are very patiently waiting in the wings for us.
I know we've been chatting away today, haven't we? Sorry, everybody.
I know. Sorry, everyone. It's an interesting conversation. All right, so I'm going to invite both of them to the stream. Hang on one second.
Yay.
Hey, welcome. Hello.
Yay, more redheads.
Welcome. EP, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you write and your method or anything about that?
Absolutely. I'm EP Stas, but you guys can call me Erin because it's always weird to have people call me EP. I don't know. And I write fantasy romance. My first series is young adult fantasy romance. And then I kind of moved into more of a fairy tale fantasy romance. It was a little bit steamier. And now my newest release that's coming out next month is like full-on adult fantasy romance with the spice and all that good stuff. So it's been a journey.
Awesome. And where can we find your work?
Right now, it's all pretty much on Amazon.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
No,
well,
what you can
in there, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Jules. Go ahead. No, I was just saying thank you.
I won't interrupt that. That's important. What you can do is in the chat, you can message with your links, and I can put them up on the screen, and I can also add them so they go feed out to other social media sites as well, because we actually are live.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube and everywhere. Hi, everybody that's out there. Sorry.
The whole universe knows about us. So we're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and also Clubhouse. So yeah. So hello to everyone who happens to be watching wherever you happen to be around the world.
And Michelle, we would love for you to introduce yourself also to us. Tell us about your work.
Kind of boring.
Oh, stop.
No, my name is Michelle Franklin. I'm an author of many things. I have 28 books with 3 different publishers,
Wow.
and I also do a lot of my own stuff. So the last 2 that I did were these 2, which is Dragons Don't Celebrate Passive. It's funny, you were just talking about tropes, and here I am going in the wings, going da-da. And then we have Werewolves Don't Celebrate Hanukkah, and that I do with my friend Jonathan Borello, who's also a cartoonist and author himself.
Wow.
But I write all different types of things, mostly fantasy, mostly comedy. But I also write nonfiction books, and I also do word things. Very, very unexciting. I'm unexciting because I do this and nothing else, so I have no life.
We've talked about it many times how isolating writing can be and how lonely the existence is. So
wait, lonely, lonesome, or just solitary? There's a big difference.
Solitary. That's true. That's a good word.
Solitary.
Solitary is a very good word.
Clarification there. Yeah.
Asterisk. I'm happy to be alone 90% of the time and put tea in my face. Yes.
Hands up, all those who agree.
And Michelle, do you have your own website that you'd like to tell us about, or are you mostly on Amazon also? Or?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on the Tickety Talk with the kids. I'm on. You can get all my books on Amazon, but you can also get. I was going to say Book Depository. Never mind. That's gone now. But anywhere online, you can also get my books at independent bookstores. There are a couple of independent bookstores in England that also have my books as well, but they're all orderable if you want them.
Awesome.
Oh, cool. And same for you. And I've just seen yours come through, Stav, so it's there. And what I'll do is, well, we normally ask our authors to do a little bit of reading for us as well. If you are happy to do that, you can read whatever you like. And if you choose not to, that's absolutely fine. I completely respect that. But if you would like to read, then you're very welcome to. And, you know, show us some of the work that you've done. Maybe do something that's linked with tropes. That'd be awesome. Do you two... What's your thoughts?
Let's talk about the tropes real quick. Yeah, let's do that real quick first.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to? Are you talking to me or?
Let's Steph go first. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I wasn't talking. I'm like, I didn't hear.
No, it's an open forum. You can speak freely. No, we're very chilled here. You can speak freely, speak your mind. We're very open.
Exactly.
No, go for it.
You know, tropes. I like them. I try not to think about them when I write a story. Like I just write my story. I write what I want. Are there tropes in it? Yes. Do I care? No. And I'm just so worried. There's so much anti-trope now. I feel like people who haven't written stories, they go in and they're so worried about not doing a trope. Like that. Someone's like, I hate love triangles, and I hate this, and then they're like, and then they never write their story,
and they can't write a story. Right. You have to have no ideas. Yep.
You know, be open, I guess, about what tropes are in there, and find your readers. Everyone's different.
Are there some interesting love triangles in your romances? Is that a major theme?
There are. There's only in my first book, I think, has kind of a love triangle. Well, I don't know. There is a thing with my male romance, my newest one, that involves the villain. I don't know if I'd call it a love triangle per se, but I mean maybe.
I love how you said male villain, and Reese and I just both went.
All right.
It's spicy.
Oh
Daddy
there's a male-female main romance between the Goblin King, my sexy Goblin King here.
Yes.
And the kind of the Gretel character, but also her brother Hansel, and he has this really sweet werewolf lover, but I kind of mess with him a lot.
Yes. Monster romance. Let's go.
That's awesome.
We embraced it all here. Yep.
Into here.
I've got in my one. She has a romantic relationship or liaison, should we say, with an alien. So I'm not entirely sure how that's going to go yet, but that's
humanoid alien, or are we talking about cosmic horror Cthulhu tentacle style alien?
We're talking.
Listen, I want to know what I'm getting into. Okay,
That's the stuff I write. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. If it's just going to be, oh, I'm an alien, but I look like a human. If it's gonna be tentacle horror with noises in the background as they get into it, that's what I'm into.
Well, it's a photosynthesizing, humanoid-looking green alien who is also female, but she looks like an orc with big pointy ears and tattoos all over her.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of like in between. So that is coming.
You have already many people here are going, yes, I approve. Very good.
How do you write those alien noises you're talking about? How would you write them?
Very hard.
Noises are so important. I write tons of noises in my books. Oh my God, totally.
I mean, it depends. If you want to write it out, you could say something like, he made love with the sound of wind chimes down a drain or something like that. Or you could actually write it. I like writing onomatopoeia, especially if it's in children's books. I have a book called The Orc Who Saved Christmas, and for their language, because it just sounds like, so I just write out the actual onomatopoeia of their language. And it's just, so for example, like they have a holiday called Hargle-Bargle. So I write that out. And then this way the humans call it Hargle-Bargle, but when the orcs are saying it, they write out. It's just funny that way.
I love this so much.
Now, I'm not sure whether I should do noises because it's in first person as well, you see. So hers will be more like her hearing those noises. Maybe some squelching as well could be going on.
Squidgy noises. Yeah, those are good noises.
You can, but now you have to figure out how to write. So you could write like the sounds. You could write, P T T B P T T. That'd be fun.
Blowing a raspberry.
The editor would have a whole field day with that one. It's like, what the hell's this?
As long as it is intelligible to the reader and everybody understands exactly what's going on, I don't see a problem with it.
I can see my editor right now going, okay.
It's a great way to make things explicit as well without saying, without writing profanities. So granted, when you write onomatopoeia, it's going to make it funny. It's going to give it that comedy aspect. But as long as you're okay with that, then you can get away with having, a child rating on it, or like an everyone rating on it, because you don't have to worry about putting warning labels on things and saying, oh, this uses profane language, because technically everybody understands. Everybody knows. That's a universal language.
That's true. So the alien that she's going to have this liaison with, or multiple liaisons with, also has the ability to link into the person's mind. So I'm wondering if there's going to be some tantric stuff going on too. So
internal noises would be a little bit more difficult. Maybe you could figure out how to do that with like some kind of power or something, some kind of perception. Maybe there's some kind of audible perception, or maybe some kind of visual perception that only she can, because it's first person, right? So maybe she can.
Yes.
Well, he's an alien. He's an alien. You could do whatever you want. So it doesn't matter.
So that's kind of that's going to start in my third book, and it's going to be in my fourth book as well for this series. So I'm gonna have fun writing that, I think. I'm feeling a bit braver about writing stuff like that after talking to both Adam and Reese so frequently about it, because I've always been a bit scared. Even like kisses, I'm like, oh, she looked at him.
We're talking about cosmic horror alien sex, and you're scared to write kisses. I hope this has assuaged your fear. I hope you never have to be afraid again, knowing that you're in the company of people who are literally talking about how to write squidgy noises.
Oh yes.
I feel brave. I do. I must admit. Actually, that is really useful. I hadn't even thought about doing that. So yeah, thank you. Alien squelching sex sounds interesting.
I'm literally in tears laughing at y'all over.
Oh my God.
But that's what you're supposed to, like. You were talking about tropes before, and I think I love tropes because there's so much, as you say, there's so much fun to play with. And I think it's, you know, especially when we're in the age of subverting expectations, it's really fun to decide. I think that's why, you know, you have like films like Monty Python that are always popular and lovely, because they take those tropes of, you know, knights and medieval horses and things like that, and then they just go whoop, and it's just, and that's what makes it so enticing and interesting and really fun. So I don't think there's anything wrong with tropes at all. As well, when you're talking about the marketing perspective, you know, we get stuck in that whole, oh, what kind of book is it? So, for example, when The Princess Bride first came out in the 70s, it got stuck in marketing hell because they went, well, what is this? Is this a fairy tale? Is this a romance? Is this a fantasy? And I believe they ended up marketing it as a romance, and it failed. Right. And then the same thing happened with the movie. And now, you know, of course, so many years later, everybody thinks, well, no, it doesn't really matter what this is. If it's a fairy tale, it's a fantasy. It's just a great story. But unfortunately, tropes have now become marketing tools, and it boxes you into these categories that maybe your book doesn't fit there.
Yes. That's the hardest part. That is the hardest part, especially when you have so many things working within your storyline, to narrow it down to that one specific thing, because all these subcategories fit along, but you have to have that header. You got to get something in there to put you in this spot, and then you can kind of play around for it there.
Yeah, and I also think as well that if you're sending stuff off to a publisher, if you've got an agent, they will have their own perception about tropes. And if they're a person who doesn't write, but also doesn't like tropes, they're just going to take one look at the first couple of lines of your book or the synopsis, and that's it. And they're not interested.
Yeah, or they'll say, I can't sell that, or I can't, you know, if you do, my first book was like that. I wrote a long time ago now, I wrote a fantasy series, and the agent that I had at the time, who I don't have anymore, said, oh, if you could put more romance in it, I could sell it as a romance, because this was before, this was like in the Twilight era, I guess. So they're like, oh, if you could sell as a paranormal romance, I could sell that. I could get that swept up. I did, and I did get published, but I was not happy about it. But it is what it is, you know. It's unfortunately, it's the business of selling the book rather than the business of the art itself. They have to use tropes to sell books to publishers who, like you say, don't write books themselves.
Yeah. And also, I think the public have their own very strong opinions about expectations. And if a book happens to fall just slightly outside of that, or is too predictable for whatever reason, they kind of just dismiss it as if it's not really relevant. But they also have really high expectations as to what they want to be brought out so they can read it or watch it. And I think that if they have not written anything, or if they've not gone through that process of all the research and the background stuff and everything else that you have to do, it's almost like, well, I don't like that, so there you go. And they kind of dismiss it. And I think that tropes have both armed us and disarmed us at the same time with the ability to be writers. And yeah, I like tropes because you can play around with it. You can mess around with the trope, and you can, you know, flip it on its head and add other tropes to it, and then switch them around, and, you know, like making Cinderella a vampire or something.
That would be kind of cool, though.
I was thinking, actually, that's quite a good idea. That's my idea. No one's taking that.
It's been recorded.
I own the copyright. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know. I think that the public can be quite harsh in their criticism and their critiquing of things, and I think that also puts writers off, where they've got an idea and they want to get it out there because, you know, they feel like they have value in the story that they've written, and it gets published, and the public are like. And I think just that itself can be quite scary. I mean, the whole process of writing, I think, is terrifying. You know, and I think authors who aren't scared about it, you know, are really brave. I really envy them. I think the whole process can be.
I'm a head out. I think you have to have a certain level of tenacity, which is you have to have confidence in in really your ability of knowing that you've done the work. That's the important thing, that you've done the work. Whether or not it sells is not necessarily entirely up to you. It's up to either publishers, agents, really good marketing. You could write the greatest book in the world that has no tropes whatsoever, and it can absolutely tank. And or you could have a book that's exactly like every other book, and it does really well because it gets swept up in that wave of being like every other book. You can't control these things, really.
Yeah. And I also think as well that you tend to, there's like cycles of themes and genres that tend to become like the in genre that everyone wants to read.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a couple of years that fades. And then there's another one. Like we had dystopian fiction, with Hunger Games and various other books that are similar. And that was really hyped up a few years ago. And then that's kind of gone now. And then there's new things that have taken over, like alternate fantasy. Where you've got like the baddies being like looked at as poor people and who need help, and they've had this terrible backstory, and that's why they're the baddie, and we need to feel sorry for them and love them. That kind of stuff.
Suddenly all the orcs are hot and we're all happy about it. Yay! Amazing. At last.
Well, and I'd like to add something to what you just said, Michelle, a minute ago about the completing the work. Anytime I see any author calling themselves an aspiring author, I always correct them and say, no, if you've written, you're an author. There's no aspiring
if you did that
about
book,
it.
If your book is done.
The aspiration comes before. If you've written something, you have an accomplishment. You are an accomplished author, even if you haven't sold, because like you said, our sales do not dictate the quality of our craftsmanship, our creativity, our creation.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's why we have this show. We want to celebrate authors. We're just here to celebrate writers and authors, and we have unpublished people come on, and we just love writing. So
there's a lot of published authors, unfortunately, out there who have this really dismal opinion about self-published authors or independent authors or independently published authors, and tend to view us and them as if, we haven't worked as hard as them because they've made it. And what they've completely ignored is actually most published authors work full-time doing that, but self-published authors or independently published authors who have only 1 or 2 books out, for example, do other things and possibly have other jobs or families that they have to look after and things as well as. And I think that sometimes gets missed. And I'm not saying that every published author out there is like that, because I know for a fact that that's not the case, but there are 1 or 2 around who have those opinions and are very vocal about them.
I think that I do agree with you, but I think that that's changing now, especially since traditional publishing is now crumbling into dust because of all these mergers and all these scandals, and now with AI covers and all these horrible things that are going on. And I know a lot of mid-list authors or even like really high traditional authors who are now publishing things themselves and realizing that it's the same thing. It's just what kind of marketing power do you have behind you? What kind of editing power do you have? And what are your connections in terms of getting your book out there? That's it. There's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would agree with you completely. And I think also as well, independent publishers do a really good job because they're small and they have a more personal relationship with their authors. And I think that is more important, that you have an author or a publisher that you work with who is really supportive of your work, who you can approach, who, can, work with you rather than saying, no, this is my company. I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to have. This is what I want. I own this rights and you just have to do as I say.
And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people have gone indie, is because they want to have more control over what they can put out.
Absolutely.
Not just the quality, but even the length in some cases, because sometimes you get boxed in by the amount of words that you have to have in a specific genre. It's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah. The fantasy you can have is 90,000 words, which sounds it depends on your perspective, but that sounds like quite a substantial amount, bearing in mind the normal amount is around 70,000 for a first published book. Okay. But it's because it's supposed to have all the world building and stuff in it. But the problem is when you're writing fantasy, it can quite often go up to like 150,000 words really easily.
Easy. Look, that's why Adam's making that face. He's like, listen, I have like 250,000 words.
Yes, my editor is
struggling through my tome. Yeah,
I'm having to do it in sections, bless her. And I also didn't warn her what was in it. I didn't say anything about what was.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Wow.
Michelle and Aaron, I write super super erotic stuff. So yeah.
Only reaction
is going to be surprised. I mean, first page. You know what's going. You know what's happening. So it's all good.
Yeah, I definitely didn't warn her about the erection. And so what? So I just left it. I sent it to her. I'm putting through in sections because it's quite big. And her only response about it was, "That's not what I expected?" ? No, exclamation mark. And for her, that says a lot. I think
when I say my story deals with human sexuality, that's a very gentle way to describe what's going on in my book. Yeah.
Who is it?
I thought you said erection, and all the monster lovers here are going.
They're like, and when's it being released again?
I'll pre-order that tomorrow.
The release date is TBC, but or TBA. I will. We'll get there, don't worry. But yeah, it's going to be good. But it's I think it's interesting to be able to talk to other authors about their opinions to do with tropes, the writing process, and also one of the reasons why we're doing this is to build a community rather than to sort of berate authors for the work that they have or haven't produced, which is what unfortunately I've seen a lot of online and in social media.
We're not supposed to do that. Oh man.
But it's more to encourage people against that. Yeah, that's all. That's
how I write books. If people go, why don't you have it's another month? Why don't you have another one? I go, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to tell us about your monsters and the Jewish holidays you've got going on back there? You mentioned them, but we'd love a little more detail about that.
Well, why don't we have Stavs go first, because she has her book right there. Oh. Did you want to read from your book? I'm interested. I want to hear about this Goblin King. I want to hear about this.
I was actually going to ask more about the romance also, but I wanted to try and make sure we got all the details out about everything. So
I can read. I picked out a scene that did not have the Goblin King.
Oh no!
You can read whatever you'd like.
Read what's easy.
Yeah, no.
I'll read the whole thing. You didn't hear
It's like, how much time do you have today?
Oh, well, the problem with reading is you don't want to spoil anything, and you're like,
no, I love spoilers because it gets me excited.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We love spoilers on this show. I say that all the time. Yep. Love spoilers.
Okay.
Because a spoiler from a movie or TV show is not the same of you sit down, you watch it, and then, somebody's going to die at the end of Braveheart. Oh, no, you've ruined it for me. But if you spend...
thanks, Adam. God.
Stop it. Oh, stop it. I'm talking historical nonsense. You know what I'm talking about. But if I tell you what happens at the end of this book, it's going to take you several weeks, perhaps, to read to the end of it. And by the time you get to that spoiler, it's not a spoiler. Oh my God, you've been led there by your author? No, it's not a spoiler at all. I love being told every detail of a book. Yes.
All right.
No, what we normally do, if you're happy to do some reading stuff, that'd be amazing. What we'll do is we'll put you on full screen. We're all still here, but we're in the background, so don't be afraid. It's okay. If you need us back,
reactions going.
No.
Well, you'll see it in the chat. Don't worry. Normally, people tend to be quite active in the chat when they're listening to stories, so don't worry about that. But yeah, when you get to a point when you finish, just indicate that you kind of come to the end, and we'll all come back on, and yeah, we can talk about it. But yeah, don't forget to introduce.
That means I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, come back, please. That's it. That's the face. Awesome. So yes,
it'll be great.
It'd be great.
High expectations.
We do. We have really high expectations.
So.
You have to act it all out and everything. That's the expectation here. Yeah, all the voices, the whole lot. But no pressure. No, I'm joking.
Oh,
Right. How you like? Be comfortable. But what I'll do is I'll put you on full screen.
Get ready.
Shake it out. Shake it out.
Let's do some stretches. Yeah. What I'll do is I'll put you on full screen, introduce yourself again, introduce your book, and then you just start reading from wherever you are. All right, ready?
Why not? Hi, I'm EP Stavs, and I'll be reading from A Forest of Grim Desires, which is the first book in my Black Forest Fantasies collection that is coming out May 18th. And this takes place, I don't know, in the middle. All right, so Gretchen has just woken up. And Redcap, the Goblin King, she thinks he's asleep in the chair. Stop overthinking things. It's going to be fine. I started at the sound of Redcap's rumble. I thought you were asleep. Kind of hard to sleep with you working yourself up over there. I was being quiet, I protested. Please, your thoughts were practically screaming we're doomed. He stood, stretching his arms over his head with a yawn. Well, now I really want to sleep. Okay. Might as well get going. Sun will be up any minute now, and it's a 3-hour ride to Brindletown. My stomach grumbled a protest. He grinned. Right, breakfast first, and then we'll leave. Oh, thank God, I'm starving. That's what happens when you go to bed without eating dinner, he pointed out. Sleep trumped food last night. I rolled out of bed and attempted to smooth some of the wrinkles from my clothes. I gave them a sniff, wrinkling my nose. Back-to-back days of travel with an added night of sleeping in them hadn't exactly left them smelling of roses. Good luck getting Tenebris to stay in the same room as me smelling like this. Redcap chuckled. There's a shower in the washroom if you'd like to use it, and I'd be surprised if Zal didn't pack you a spare set of travel clothes. Good thinking. I grabbed my pack off the floor, then paused. Is the water here as cold as in your castle? You're in the king's personal suite, he smirked. What do you think? I think you're a little too smug for your own good. I sniffed as I turned on my heel and headed into the washroom. His laughing voice floated through the door as I closed it. Don't get too distracted in there now. I know how much you desire me, but really, really do need to be hitting the road. I whipped the door back open, cheeks burning and eyes shooting daggers. Seriously, you'll sleep on the chair, but have no problem saying something like that? Also, as if I'd be thinking of you. Who would desire someone with an ego as big as yours? His smirk stretched across his face. There's no use denying it. That curse wouldn't have worked on you the way it had if you hadn't already been lusting after me. Not that I blame you. I am the Goblin King. More like the goblin ass, I retorted. He quirked a bow. Really? That's what you're going with? Oh, shut up. I slammed the door shut, only to open it again as I added. By the way, there were 2 of us involved that night. What was it you said about the curse? Something about it making your desire overcome your common sense? I grinned. Do try to keep it in your pants while you wait. I wouldn't want thoughts of me standing naked, all wet and dripping with soapy bubbles to overwhelm your common sense again. His smirk took on a wicked edge as he prowled toward me. Now that you mention it, it might be better if I showered with you. Then you wouldn't need to think about what I might be doing out here all alone. I scoffed, even as the image of Redcap sliding a sudsy sponge over my breasts and down my body sent a series of tingles spiraling through my core. They settled between my legs with an insistent hum that begged for attention. Oh, I'm going to think about it. I loosened the ties on my shirt as I slowly closed the door in his face. I'm going to think about it long and hard. I grinned as his answering groan followed me into the shower. This is my I'm done face. I hope I actually said all the words. I've like spit building up in my mouth and just like not a good reader out louder.
You did a great job.
Talking about
Donington.
That was really well read. So,
I legit laughed out loud with the bubbly soap suds. I was giggling and blushing. Yes.
We love the goblin. So, what tropes does that link to? Do you think that you've written in there?
For this one, probably the anti-hero, morally gray villains. I'm not good at picking tropes out of nowhere.
Red Cap is a great name, by the way. Good name.
Ride and die friendships, that kind of thing. I'm 40 and I just use the term ride and die. I'm sure I did that wrong.
We just make up a new trope. Don't worry. I like that. Let's use that. Let's all write that in our stories somehow and make it become a new trope that exists for authors forevermore.
I do think this conversation is a little awkward because the word trope for so many people is a negative thing, and most of us think about it positively. So it's like we're like, what trope did I use? Because somebody out there would be like, they used that trope, you know. We're like, we're finding inspiration from things. It's we don't think about it in the same terms. But you're right.
Yeah, I do try to pick out those scenes and stuff that are tropey, because to be honest, when you're doing like TikTok and stuff, advertising, you're like, okay, well, I want people to read my book, and you're like, you got to start off with the when so and so does this, and then those are the ones that take off and get readers. So I go back and I look for those things, but
copy somebody else's adverts that worked before them.
Right. Yep. It's like, okay.
I think also as well, if you have something that the readers can relate to, even if it's a completely different story, but it's something like a fairy goblin or vampire Cinderella, even though that's something new, you kind of have an idea of the story of Cinderella, so you know it's got some sort of thing to do with that, so you can relate. There's a thing that you call in psychology called schema, which is basically where you use knowledge from previous experience to understand new experiences. I've explained that really badly, but that's basically what it is. And so there's similar kind of thing that happens here, where you've got other things that feed into yours and you've created something new from it, and it's unique and it's amazing and it's different. But it also has things that are familiar that people can relate to from previous things that they may have watched or read. And I think that's really important, because if you have something that's completely way out there that no one has ever read before, sometimes I think that has the opposite effect of actually making people want to read it, because they're like, I don't know, I don't understand this, I can't relate to this, I don't know anything about what this is talking about, it means nothing to me. Whereas if you have sort of like a twist on the Hansel and Gretel story, people can relate to that, even if it's a completely different story, even if you just use the names. I don't know, that's just my thoughts on it anyway. There you go. That's a really good one. You read that beautifully.
Oh, that's good. I'd be hard pressed to find a story that was completely 100% original. I can't even imagine at this point in time that there is how to do that.
Well, I would say that probably applies throughout time at different points. Like there was an era where like Dune came out and people couldn't handle that book, but anybody who liked those 50 sci-fi movies ate up Dune immediately as soon as the book came out. So there was a very limited audience for it, but now the audience is so much bigger that you're right, that there's so much out there. So many people have been exposed to so much that they're like, oh, show me something new. And there's not a whole lot of new stuff, because we're all being inspired by other things that we loved. Something that we loved is speaking to us and helping us write something new.
There's an old quote, I can't remember who said it. There's no such thing as an original idea. And I think that's really true, because although we have new things in our world for various things, whether it's technology or creativity or whatever, they've all come from something. Something has inspired that, something has triggered that thought process. And so you can keep going all the way back in time to the invention of the wheel. But at some point, that person who created the wheel would have seen something that would have inspired that thought process. And the same with, you know, being able to create fire, same thing. You know, and if you look at how we've evolved through time and telling stories and painting stuff on the walls of caves and things, we have all the whole time been retelling stuff. So I think that's where tropes have come from. And I agree with you, Adam. I think that the word trope sounds so negative, but actually I think it's important that we turn it on its head and make it good. So says I.
It's Cinderella vampires already done by the cavemen. So, you know.
Oh, damn.
They were the first ones to be the Cinderella vampire.
What about Cinderella who's a zombie? Got quite like that idea.
Neanderthals.
Oh.
What does that remind me of? Was it Warm Bodies was the name of the movie?
Uh-huh.
Was that when it and he changed into he became human again?
He started turning back. Right.
Doesn't that just prove what I just said? There is no such thing as an original idea. I have to rethink. Go back to the drawing board. Now, I would really love to hear from you as well, if that's possible, to do some reading. That'd be lovely.
Okay, so what do we feel like? Do we feel like dragons or do we feel like werewolves? Because those are the only two other. I mean, I've got some of my other books behind here, but they're not very interesting. Whereas I think people, I have some my Celtic mythology book and another short story book that I did. But these are visually, I think, more interesting. So do we want dragons or do we want werewolves? I'll let everybody vote. Go.
Oh, we're doing a vote. Oh God. Okay.
Everybody for werewolves, put your hand up. Or write me in the chat. Werewolf. Okay.
Uh-oh, that's two.
Everybody for dragons?
Oh no. What
we need a tiebreaker. Harmony, help.
Check the chat.
Somebody in the chat. Harmony, you're watching still. Tell us, would you rather have werewolves or dragons? Tell us.
I'm like, we need Harmony as a tiebreaker here.
Oh man. Could you read a little of both? Is it short enough?
I mean, I could. No, they're quite true. I mean, you see their picture books. You said here.
Harmony said dragons.
Okay, dragons it is. Harmony.
Dragons it is. Dragons.
Okay, so here is the cover. Dragons don't celebrate Passover. Ooh, here's the back cover. All the little dragons that
so cool.
Yeah. Let Jules pop it up on the full screen.
Yeah, and then you can show that off to the whole world. Hang on a second. There we go.
Okay. So here we are. Page 1. We got to do this kindergarten style. So dragons don't celebrate Passover. There you go. Some of the dragons have names, some of them don't. So I will read and then I will show you the picture because I don't know. Oh, maybe we can see like this. Okay. This is the dedication page. So we skip. There we go. Dragons don't celebrate Passover, but they do superintend it and manage all the details of the holiday, which is a much safer thing. If they celebrated Passover in earnest, they would hoard all the matzah and threaten to bake all the guests in a dragon fire if the Seder should take too long. Dragons do live a dreadfully long time, but that doesn't mean they like waiting 3 hours for dinner. Let's see if you can. There. Kindergarten style. Everybody can see the pictures. They're masters at saying Passover because anything with a double S in the middle rolls off their tongues with an impressive hiss. And they like to feel correct and important about things. They can also say Pesach, the Hebrew name for the holiday, which means to pass over. Since the ending sound in Pesach catches in the throat, the dragons always end up belching fire. This fire is not wasted, however. It's used for making brisket and poaching tomatoes. The only downside to this is that the dragons have to say Pesach 100 times in a row until the dinner is done. And then over here on the side it says, Pesach becomes Pesafum on account of the sudden furnace blast of the dragon breath. This is how the dragons rid us of the long S sound by singeing the top half of the coiled crisp. Dragons help burn all the chametz to make the house kosher for Passover. Before Passover begins, every house must be checked for chametz, leavened items made from either wheat, barley, oats, rye, or spelt that have been mixed with water and allowed to rise. The night before Passover begins, the last search for chametz is made by candlelight, and in the morning, all the chametz is brought to the dragons for them to burn. Dragons themselves are not kosher. This is important to know in case anyone gets hungry and tries to have a nibble at them. Many dragons have fins and scales, but they fall under the reptile category of kosher and are therefore off limits for kosher houses. The dragons are happy about this because it means they get to be invited for dinner instead of being dinner. Dragon fire is great for making matzah. Matzah is unleavened bread, which may or may not be the origin of cardboard. For Passover, dragons help make a special type of matzah called shmura, meaning the matzah that was watched from the moment of the harvest. The process of making matzah should not take longer than 18 minutes to prevent the dough from rising. Dragons poke little holes in the dough with their claws and watch the shmura matzah bake in the oven until it starts to bristle and bubble. I'll show you the dragon making the matzah. There you go. There, I think that's good enough because that's about halfway through. There. Dragons don't celebrate Passover.
That was so cool. I love that. I felt like I was back at school again.
Yeah, I need you need to like put it over and then show this way and then show that way and then.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's really interesting that you've kind of like blended it with links to Judaism, but without making it like this is a religious book. It's
yeah, they're very accessible. There's no mention of God. There's no mention of heavy religious practices. This just straight traditions of the holiday.
It's really cool. I love that because I think a lot of people forget those smaller parts of it, which are obviously really important, but they tend to get taken over by the bigger events and like certain words as well, certain phrases you've added in there as well, which I think is awesome. I love that.
Well, also different sects of there's ultra orthodox, conservative, reform, etc. So they all have different practices, but these are general practices, like I said, that just fall under the holiday practices that most people practice. So this way you don't feel, if you follow one way, you don't feel left out, or you don't think, oh, well, I don't do this, my family doesn't do this. So it's very eclectic, but also not too off-putting.
I think it's
so many times. I laughed so many times while you were reading. Every page I laughed at something. It was adorable. I loved it.
Well, John also does a great job at the drawings. They're quite funny. So that's his style. That's his style. He always has very active expressions, and
the drawing is very animation looking. Yeah.
I joked we started this series because we were having difficulties. Like as I said, publishing is crumbling. So I was supposed to have another book out, and that book kind of is now in limbo. So I said, "Hey John, do you want to do a fun like book that we could do together, where we could make funny characters and something that people could enjoy with their families and their kids, something that would be a bit timeless. So you could just have these books hanging around, and crack them out whenever you want." Trying to find a really fun there. We have different characters now that go through the books. There's Baba Yenta, who is friends with all the monsters because she wants them to eat. Are you eating?
Hang on, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to put you on the solo layout just so you can show the picture.
Okay, so here we have there's Baba Yenta, and then we have and then we have the werewolves who are debating over how to spell Hanukkah by having wrestling matches. And then I don't have that book on me, but we also have the orc who saved Christmas, and that one is more of a storybook. But again, John does the illustrations of Darren, who is the orc who wants to celebrate Christmas but doesn't know how because the villagers don't want him near them. And then his best friend Carla, who's a little girl, who ends up the two of them end up saving Christmas together. And there's also characters like there are crossover characters between this series and that series.
That's really so cool. In you're talking about sound effects in my children's book, which is one of them is in the process of being reviewed by ACX to go on audio books. There's lots of like grr and r's and all that kind of because that's all about a monster who comes from the land of Zorog, who and they come into existence, they're magicked into existence in this land when a child in the world is sad or upset or anxious or worried about something, and they are sent on a mission to Earth to try and help that child feel better in whatever way. And the monster that's in this series is called Gloomloo, and he befriends a puppy who is actually based off one of my dogs, who happens to be somewhere. And together they kind of go around and, you know, look after children and help them feel better. But yeah, that's quite sweet. It's got, like, you know, some sound effects in there. So I'm interested to hear how the narrator has handled some of those. Yeah.
Well, we have kind of quite a few sound effects in this one, but I think most of the sound effects are the orc who saved Christmas, because again, it's like the orc language. So how would a human hear the orc language? And it would just be. That's it. I just think it's funny. And you're laughing, right? So it has to be funny.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, how else would you understand an orc? You know, we haven't learned Orcish. Is that?
Yeah, they do call it Orcish. You could call it.
Oh, what they do?
So, yeah, they do call it Orcish. Yeah.
Look at that, right on the money.
No, just the Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but as well, you know, if you took Tolkien's universe, I mean, orcs have been with us since the Etruscan mythology, or from Orcus, you know, and then the Romans adopted it, and then it got adopted into Greek, and then the Germanic languages took it, and that's how we got orc. But orc is a demon from hell. It can be any, and then that can be anything. It doesn't. So if maybe they have their own language, maybe they don't. Maybe they speak Latin, maybe they don't. Maybe they have, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be the Tolkien way of doing things. He just took what was already in mythology and incorporated it into his own mythology. So in Tolkien, he has, you know, yes, they have what he calls the black speech, but orcs, you know, they go, oh, you got a shiny shirt, like they all have, you know, the very typical ridiculous every time I hear an orc, I just think it's Bob Hoskins. That's what orcs sound like.
Tolkien was really good, actually, because he actually went to university. He was studying something, I can't remember what it was, and he changed to doing a language course and got a language degree so that he could create and develop his own language for his books. And you know, you can really see that in the Elvish language, that it's a proper language that you can actually learn. It's fascinating. Not that
which is weird, because he said he didn't want people to learn it linguistically, which I think is odd. Why not? Why not? It doesn't matter. If people want to speak it, knock yourself out. Who cares?
I think that I suppose from his sort of day and age, he was in the war, wasn't he? And a lot of his stories were based off of his experiences or what he felt at the time. And so there was lots of things that he didn't understand, like he didn't understand another language, and for him that was terrifying. And so I suppose, you know, adding that layer of uncertainty or lack of knowledge within the stories adds, I suppose, value to
well, he knew Latin. You just, you know, you can't speak Latin with somebody else. How many people are going to speak vulgar medieval Latin with each other these days? Nobody. It doesn't. So, but
Eton. Eton's a very, 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 very upper class private school, which all of our prime ministers have come from, unfortunately. So they probably speak it there. In the halls when they're trying to be really naughty or something.
To get their A levels done.
Yes, exactly. They probably have it as an extra GCSE, you know, just to make it look good on their CVs or something. You know, as a prime minister, I can speak this.
Conversational medieval Latin, you know, no big deal.
I can't speak proper English, and I can't actually communicate effectively with my constituents, but I can speak this, so it's all right.
Well, why don't you speak Orcish? Somebody in Parliament, I want to see that happen. Get up to Parliament. Get up to Parliament.
No, I would vote for them. I would vote for them. We used to have a political party called the Monster Raving Loony Party.
Oh, they're my favorite. I love them. I love Lord Fishfinger and Lord Buckethead. They're the best. They're amazing.
I actually voted for them at one point.
Yay! Awesome. They're so ridiculous. I love it. And Elmo. I love somebody dressed up as Elmo. I don't know if people don't know about this, but the way that it works in British politics, so when you vote, so you have to vote on a municipal level. So when you vote, they have to tally up the votes, and then everybody who actually gets voted for stands on a stage. So the Monster Raving Loony Party, they're all ridiculous candidates, but they actually have real platforms. You can go and look at Lord Buckethead's platform. It's actually very progressive. And so if they get votes, they stand next to these very proper and prim statesmen who are standing up there. And so you have them calling things like, was it Boris Johnson, 455 votes. Lord Buckethead, His Eminence the Fifth, 675. And they're all there, and it's great. It's amazing.
And they're also dressed up in the most bizarre outfits as well. And they have a proper policies that they've laid out, and most of them are absolutely ridiculous and stupid, but they are registered proper party that you could have actually voted for. They're amazing. Yeah, they were amazing. It's so sad that they kind of had to disband after he died. But British politics are great. I might start them up again. The Monster Raving Orcish Party.
Yes,
there you
I'm
go.
in. Absolutely.
Somebody needs to come up as a werewolf.
Oh my god, that'd be so
I'm
amazing. That'd be so cool.
I'm ready. My werewolf platform once a month. We just have off we have our bank holiday once a month on the new moon or the full moon, whatever. Choose your poison.
Whichever. Yeah.
I love that.
That's great. I would vote for that.
I would vote for that. I'll have a bank holiday every 28 days for sure. I'm there. Where do I sign up?
Please and thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of I'm just thinking, because I think we're all in the same sort of category in terms of our agreement on tropes and the usage of tropes and how useful they are to sort of be a bouncing start to the story that you're going to create, and also creating a safe space for readers, particularly younger readers. The younger readers really like the tropes, the princess marries the prince kind of thing. And so I think that they're a really safe place to go. And I think that what would be good is to maybe get it out there and change people's perceptions on the word itself. But how we go about doing that, I don't know. But I think it's important to do that because, there's so many negative things attached to the word that it stops engagement from readers sometimes, I think. But yeah, I don't know. Do you agree? Do you think that we're all kind of have our own opinion, but it's all kind of coming together?
I do think that the word trope definitely has a negative connotation just in general, but
yeah. I've actually seen some websites where people have absolutely bashed tropes, and cliches as well as another one, because cliches tend to be, they're things that are overused a lot, but they're really useful. There's a reason why they're used a lot, because they tend to work.
The only criticism I have of cliches is really just a semantic one, wherever I tell my students, whenever they write a cliche, I go, that they fall back on it when they can't think of something else to write or how to describe something. That's fine, but it would be better if you could figure out how to write something in your own voice rather than falling back on a cliche. And because when you do that, then you end up sounding like everybody else. Whereas if it's just better if you can come up with a way that would make your voice unique.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But I think that's what we do, isn't it? We maybe look to tropes or even cliches for a little bit of inspiration to kind of do that initial spark, particularly when you're sitting in front of a computer, and I'm pretty sure we've all done this, and we've kind of gone,
how do I say this? How do I say this thing?
I love the fact you're narrating exactly what's going on in my head at the moment. It's amazing. It's like a cartoon. I'm acting out and you're saying what I'm thinking. It's brilliant. But yeah,
the bubble is going to appear at some point.
But you sit in front of the computer and you're like, and then there's that first word, and you're like,
That's when you can imagine me in your ear and just going, just write. And there you go.
Is that with 2 P's or
PHPBPBPBTH?
Yeah, I was going to say, we need clarification on the letter order here. That would be really.
That's up to you and your voice. However you feel a raspberry sounds, that's entirely your choice.
You're about to test it? You're about to test it? Yeah, it's all that.
She was about to just.
But I think it's important that we, I had when I was working in education in the sort of sector, we had guest authors in, and one of them came in, and he was a method author. Now, don't get me wrong, his books are really good, but we have method actors, don't we? But he was a method author. And he actually literally went and studied or went places where, to actually become the thing that he was writing about. So he actually went and learned the skills so he could write that in his books, which I think is a really cool way of doing it, which is what I was trying to do with the Raspberry.
You have to practice.
It all came full circle. That explanation came all the way around. We didn't know where this was going. Thanks for that. That really worked. That worked.
We've come full circle.
Came all the way back to the beginning. Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's also because I grew up reading a lot of Calvin and Hobbes and comics in general, and I do read a lot of manga. So when there's very little prose that you can put in that specific medium of graphic novelia. So you have to learn how to convey things differently. And that's what they usually do. They'll put, a sound effect or something like that to show that something has happened in the background, but you don't know that it's there. You go or something like that. I know that depending on the genre, that is not necessarily good for you, but I hope my tip has been helpful.
I think graphic novels are an amazing way to start reading and also to continue reading. They're really good, particularly for students and children who are really struggling with just the whole reading process, like people who've got dyslexia or just find reading difficult, because you've got the images there to guide you and to give you an idea. And if you have a basic level of knowledge on the sounds and the phonemes and the graphemes within, and the digraphs and all that within the language itself, you can kind of put together what's happening. And if you've got sound effects that go along with it, that makes it, it's almost like a 3D effect, and you end up, really immersed in the story. One of the books that my son read first was actually Death Note. Which I don't know if you know about Death Note, but it's a really good. Yeah, I'll stop talking then. No, it's a good one, isn't it? Because it's completely different, and you read it back to front, and it's all black and white, and really clear. But it's amazing story and amazing writing. But because it's a graphic novel, you've got an idea of what's going on in the story, even if you just look at the pictures. With
dyslexia and difficulty reading, having those little word bubbles allows you tiny little digestible chunks of dialogue and some occasionally narration blocks where you just have to read 1 or 2 sentences, figure out what's going on based on the picture, and then move on to the next thing. It's pretty convenient for early readers. I think is a great place. Comic books are awesome. I love comic books. In case you didn't know.
Specifically for comprehension skills, because that's one of the hardest things. A lot of people are reading things, but they're not retaining the information because they don't comprehend what they're just reading it just because the words are there, but they're not retaining the information.
Yeah. I honestly, there's when I work with students and I ask them to read something, and then I ask them to explain back to me what they've just read, the amount of students that kind of draw a complete blank because they've looked at the words and they've not absorbed any of the information, regardless of what it is they're reading. And so having the pictorials there, and without, because the other thing as well, I think long descriptions are great for a specific type of reader.
Me. I love the walls of text. Everybody else goes, oh, I go, yay.
Yeah. I've got family who absolutely love really like copious amounts of descriptions about what the setting looks like and what it smells like and everything else. But then there's other people who just want the bare minimum because they can imagine the rest in their head. They don't need those great descriptions and pages worth of writing about what the shop looks like or whatever. So yeah,
how are they gonna know?
Well, but I
know, right?
I think it has to do with what you're writing. If the shop is important, then it should be in the book. If the shop's not important, what it looks like, then it probably isn't necessary to be written in. Like, I can think every time you mention detail, there's a scene in my long novel where I describe one
it's long.
There's a description of one person that lasts more than a whole page. Just what he's wearing, what he's got.
Was that our red character? Was that our red character? Is that the one?
Oh, no. But see, and that's the opposite. To me, that's the opposite. That is an example of somebody where I describe the red a few times and you know exactly what's happening. But this other person, I spend an entire page and you still have no idea what he looks like. Like, there's so much detail to him that, yeah.
My books, so my series, Ray, who's the protagonist, you get very vague descriptions about what she looks like, and the rest is up to you. I don't mind, I'm not bothered. You make up in your mind what relates most to you. She has a massive curly hair that's a bit annoying because it kind of goes all over the place, but she doesn't really care about it. She braids it occasionally and that's about it. And she has green eyes. That's it. That's all you know. So whatever color hair you like her to have or what kind of skin you want her to have is entirely up to you. But yeah, in the novel that Adam and I are working on, one of the things that my character is doing is being very particular about what he is seeing and being almost a bit like an analysis of where he happens to be. So one of the scenes that at the moment that I'm working on is he's walking through a park in Charleston, and he's going to be thinking about and looking at what he's seeing on the trees and the ground and how cold it is in the air and raw details like that, because they matter to him. But the lovey-dovey stuff, not interested in at all. Because he's very clinical. And so I think, again, it depends on the characters in the story, doesn't it? About how much detail you put in. And
true.
And also Adam's character, she is very much, how do I describe her? How would you describe her, Adam?
My screen glitched out for a second. I have no idea what we're even talking about right now.
Oh, no. I was just saying, in the novel that you and I are working on, my character is very clinical about everything. So he is
analytical, super analyzing,
Yeah. So he'll notice frost on the trees, for example, or the crispness of the grass as he walks over it, or the steam of his breath as he breathes it out, and things like that. But he doesn't notice things like how he feels or how someone else feels and all that kind of stuff. Whereas your character is
going out to the bar and having great times with friends and like existing and like real life and all that stuff. Yeah, having romance, all those types of things.
Yeah.
The contrast is stark.
Yeah, and I really I don't want to give too much away, but the style that we're doing it in is going to be different and interesting. So I
hope people like it. It's gonna be quirky. It's gonna be quirky. I like it. It's been fun to work.
Are you sure the cavemen haven't already done it though?
Well, it's possible. Very possible.
It's strongly possible, but the storyline.
And I know several influences that have inspired where we got to how Jules and I writing this. So I do know where we got our ideas. It's not like we're creating something brand new.
No, it's not completely like never been done ever before in any way, shape, or possible. But it is different, and it's a different style. And so it should be interesting. But it's a psychological thriller / how else would you describe it?
I think that's the right description. I think that's right.
Psychological thriller. Yeah. Yeah. And I've had fun doing my research, put it that way.
I hope nobody checks your search engine, Jules, because it's going to get real interesting on those conversations.
I think I'm already on a watch list for the CIA as well as MI5. Don't worry.
That just means it's going to be really, really good.
Rigor mortis actually only lasts 5 hours.
It's more like how to break into someone's home and how to without them knowing, and how to film them without their knowing, and how to sexually assault them without them knowing, and things like that. That's another little clue as to
now the FBI are coming. It was great, everybody. Yeah. I gotta go.
What's here? I've got to go now. So, but I'm not going to reveal any more about it. I'm going to rest quiet because I don't want to spoil it.
Well, do you want to read something from one of your own books, since we're not going to talk about that one anymore?
I can do. I can read a little bit from to do with Ray. So this is. Oh yeah. Okay. Hang on, let me just check which bit am I looking at. Okay. Let me just go forward a little bit. Hang on, because I think I read that bit to you already.
Will you pop yourself up on the screen just like you've done for everybody else too?
I'll pop you up on the screen whilst I read. There you go.
No, not me. Not me. No.
Just like, sure. Stare at you, Adam.
All right. Okay. So this is from my second book of Shadow and Swords. This is from my Tales from Erde series, which also has got an anthology series being released as well. But that's only on my website. And if you become a member, you'll be able to have free access to that. And it's going to be a series of short stories that are going to go into the whole backstory of how this actually came about. So just to give you a brief update, so Ray is she's been sent on her very first mission as a commander. She basically fucks it up. People get killed, and this is at the other end of it, where she's trying desperately to try and do what she can, and this is where we start seeing the first glimpses of a mentorship type relationship going on with someone who absolutely hates her guts. Okay. Kez limped and panted with every step. Her face alone was a testament to the pain she was in, but she continued to push forward regardless. The sword, although raised and ready against any potential threat, floundered more than I liked. Raven lay on the makeshift stretcher between us, moaning a little as we tracked over the rough ground, whilst Willa's face had beads of sweat forming from the effort of dragging Raven. I couldn't lose any of these three, so I kept my bow up, the silk tight enough to only require the slightest movement to bring the arrow into existence. Every noise and crack made me spin, with my arrow ready, and each step was just... Sorry. Every noise and crack made me spin, and with my arrow nearly readied, and each step was slow and purposeful, inching closer to our goal. If we could make it home, we could adequately treat Raven with proper medicine, but Kez needed something to bring her fever down, otherwise it would be too late. There was something about Kez, her toughness, inner strength and poise that was admirable. Her stoic demeanour was inspiring and made me want to be better than I was. She was someone I aspired to be. I had no idea if she still harboured the same feelings about me as she did at the beginning of this wretched mission, but my own had changed. I liked her. Had Ma been like her, or had she been more like Enepe? The love and warmth emulated from Aina were palpable, and I loved her as much as I supposed I would like my own. But Kez was enigmatic and powerful. Everything she had said to me from before to now replayed in my mind, jumbled up with a continual cycle of us getting home safe. The trek was arduous and the constant alertness was exhausting. I'd had no sleep for 2 nights. My muscles throbbed from the need to rest, and all my eyes wanted to do was close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip forward a little bit from this bit. Oh, hang on. Sorry, you've all disappeared on my screen. 1 second. There we go. I'm going to skip forward a little bit to when they actually reach home. The interior of Tristan's hall was filled with the entire circle, some sitting, others leaning against the wall, some pacing, and Tristan leaning on the round table and that nested in the centre of the room. As we walked in, each person turned to look at me. Their expressions were unreadable, and Raven's voice whispered in a sarcastic tone behind me. Happy welcoming committee. He clambered from the stretcher with some help from Willa. Shh, Kez whispered to him. Tristan folded his arms and scowled at us with his eyes resting on me. You failed your first mission. Not only did you not complete it, but you got 2 people, 2 good people. They died. I stepped forward. My mouth went dry. But I was ready to be exiled if it meant the others could return to their families. It's my fault. Yes, Tristan glowered at me, his eyes narrow. It was. It was me who decided to scout ahead. If I hadn't, then... No, Ray. The anger in his voice was harsh and the silence palpable. As a commander, it is your role to bring people back home. How can people trust you and follow your orders if it leads them to their deaths? It was all I could do but clench my jaw to stop the tears that threatened. He was right. I wasn't fit to be a commander, even less than the Sentinel. Exile was a suitable punishment for my failure. May I say farewell to Enepe and Ash before I go? I walked towards the door, not allowing my eyes to wander to the sea of faces that stared at me. With a deep frown, Dagon stood and peered at me, but spoke with a kindness that I didn't deserve. Where are you going, Ray? Somewhere in the forest. Perhaps the refugees will allow me to stay with them. Dagon tilted his head, a confused expression on his face. Why? Because you're exiling me, so... He raised his bushy eyebrows. Exiling? Why would we do that? Because that's what happens when you fail and my voice cracked, and I opened it to speak again. Dagon raised his hand to stop me. Your mission may have failed, Ray. However, you alone will bear this, and the consequences will remain with you always. Glass, Tristan and I have discussed it and feel that this is punishment enough. Don't you agree? You do? Yeah. Yes, it is. And I will do everything I can to bring honour to the fallen. The twisting in my gut was enough to make it clear that Dagon spoke the truth. Like everything else, the events forever would haunt me. There we go. So I'm going to stop reading now. Welcome everyone back. Hey! Some new people. Sorry. Oh, there you go. I'm new people. There you go. So I know I skipped a little bit, but yeah. So Ray basically she just messes up quite a lot and makes a lot of mistakes, and she ends up having to live with the consequences. But what I've done in it is there's lots of monsters in here, and she has to fight them, mainly because they try and kill her, not because she goes hunting for them. And they're based on mythology and tropes, but the monster's also a metaphorical representation of her lack of dealing with her mental health trauma. So she gets absolutely brutalized in book 1 and tortured, and that haunts her, and children's deaths haunt her, and the child soldiers haunt her, and everything else. And so the monsters that she has to fight, because they try and kill her, get bigger and bigger and bigger as the stories progress. And at some point she will conquer that trauma, and she will manage to deal with it properly, and actually the monsters will no longer attack her. That's kind of like how it's going. But yeah, I'm quite looking forward to writing the alien sex thing.
We're all looking forward to it as well.
Listen.
We're looking forward to hearing that reading.
Well, I don't know yet what's underneath the clothing that Katori wears. So I haven't actually written that part in yet. They may be hiding tentacles. Who knows? You know, maybe there's a
That's
root
gonna be
system.
interesting.
Maybe that's how they get their food. So like they're photosynthesized through their skin. But maybe they have tentacles, which are like roots, which kind of source out other nutrients and things. Who knows? Bit like
Other
living.
nutrients.
It's like weird tree sex. Like that. That's a weird thing. Has that been done before?
I think we're all into it.
We're here for it. We don't care.
Yeah, we don't care. Who cares? Doesn't matter.
What all it will be is just like 2 whole pages of just squelch. That'll be it. And
that's enough for live readings. If you can't do that with your mouth, you have to get the jar of mayonnaise going.
Yes. That's hilarious.
So just to be clear, it's not apple pie.
No, that has a crunch on it.
Yes, I think I've heard that before. Actually, someone else has said that. That has a crunchy bit. Well, sometimes a bit crunchy, possibly. Who knows? So some people have started tanning that bit, so that might be a bit crispy.
Oh no, I had a bad image of like fried chicken. This is not good.
Oh my God, no. No,
KFC is never going to look the same again. Sorry.
It's an interesting texture, but I will leave that one alone.
Not gonna lie, I quite like the texture of the KFC. So
I'm never getting invited back to this program.
Oh, you are. Listen.
Oh, you definitely will. Don't you worry. Yeah. So I think it's. Yeah, my opinion is that tropes are a good thing. They are necessary, very important. And God damn it,
Back to the main topic again. Just shoehorn that in there.
So in conclusion,
that's it. Tropes. To conclude, we can start in an essay. Adam or Reese, would you like to read a little bit from your book?
Sure.
Now the question is, what will I read? Look, she's doing the same thing I'm doing. That's so crazy. You know what? I think I want to throw Jasmine out here a little bit because
I love Jasmine.
I don't read a lot of Jasmine's thoughts, and I think it's kind of fun just dipping into some things where she gets into her thoughts about her situation with Naomi. So yeah, I think this might be a good time to read this part.
Let's go. I love Jasmine.
Well, hopefully next read I'll have some things from book 2, but right now we'll be reading from Trapped, book 1 of the Trap series. And this scene is Jasmine speaking about a vacation, so to speak, that her and Naomi are on. I stood naked at the window, staring out over the horizon, as the faint sound of waves crashing against the cliff lulled. Let me start that over. I stood naked at the window, staring out over the horizon, as the faint sound of waves crashed against the cliff, lulling my thoughts. My mind kept replaying the events of the last few days, as if it were a movie on a projector. Yomi and I had snuck out of the city for the weekend to just relax and enjoy each other's company without having to hide from our friends. I had no idea how she found this place, but it was gorgeous. The view over the Atlantic alone was worth a fortune, and we were taking full advantage of our seclusion. I didn't even know you could rent a lighthouse. It was nice to be in a place where nobody knew or cared who we were. We were just 2 people vacationing seaside, hanging out on a private beach, dining under the stars. At the lighthouse, we could be free to express ourselves in any way we wanted, in any position we wanted. So why was I wasting the last few hours of this trip dreading our return home? Maybe it was because for the first time in my life, I felt torn, and that uncomfortable feeling had me wide awake and restless. My thoughts as tumultuous as a storm brewing outside. tumultuous? Damn, Naomi was starting to rub off on me, and I wasn't sure I liked that. I knew that getting involved with her would be trouble from jump, but I couldn't help myself. Naomi had a tendency to pull things out of me, to tap into my emotions like no one else could, which frustrated the hell out of me. The last thing I needed was for her to get attached to me. Hell, I didn't need to get caught up with her either, for that matter. Yet here I was, spending quality time with her. I was already in too deep. I had to be smart. I had to be careful. I remembered the bitter taste of betrayal all too well, and I would not let myself go there again. I needed to keep my guard up, especially with Naomi. Just then, I heard a soft sigh from the other side of the room. I turned toward the sound, and Naomi's sleeping frame came into focus. She was stretched across the king-size bed, the sheets partially covering her naked frame. She reached up to rub her nose, then snuggled deeper into the pillow. A flutter of lightning illuminated her for a moment, but I didn't need the assistance to see her. I had already committed her body to memory. The toffee hue of her skin, every curve, every tender spot. I knew it all as if my own hands had molded her body from clay. From a distance, I traced every exposed inch of Naomi's skin with my eyes. I stared until I couldn't resist the need to touch her again, and I crossed the space between us. I'm going to stop right there. Which I normally don't do, but I'm going to stop right there.
Brutal. Oh.
Why?
Love it.
I wanted you to get more into her thoughts than the scene.
Yes. No, love it. Loved it. It was beautiful.
I love Jasmine. She's cool. She's my
Jasmine's
favorite.
hilarious. Y'all, this scene I was working on today, it's going to be interesting because this next book, you're really going to get deeper into her thoughts of some things that happened from her past. So she's got some more things that are coming up, and just working through these different scenes has just been emotional torture for me because I'm pulling in my own heartstrings just trying to get these scenes done. And it's crazy because last weekend I was in Atlanta, so I'm on a plane, I'm heading to Atlanta at this particular point. And I'm like, you know what? I just felt like writing something. So I'm sitting there with my cell phone and I'm typing away. And I get to this one scene and I'm writing, and I'm like literally on the plane going, don't you start crying in front of these strangers. Don't you do it.
That's fine. They probably think you're texting to a spouse or something. It doesn't matter.
They didn't care. That lady sitting next
care.
to me wasn't worried about me. But it was just crazy because I'm like, oh my God. I mean, but it's interesting how you get wrapped up in your own story, you know, when you're really sitting down to get those thoughts out. You really get wrapped up into it, into the effect that it does make you emotional. But that I feel like is what makes the scene good, because if I'm getting emotional about it, I know the next person that reads it is going to have some kind of emotional, visceral reaction to this particular scene. And I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
I love it when you get really
messing with your readers is important. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you've got a character who you feel that emotional attachment to, which is really difficult to kind of not have an emotional attachment because all your characters are coming from you anyway. But when you create a character that you either admire, you have like something that you can link to, or you feel like they're your alter or anything like that, I think it's really powerful writing, especially when you kill them off.
I haven't killed anybody yet, but that might be on the horizon. I just won't tell you who
I've killed lots of people.
I was going to say, we had a conversation last week, didn't we, about how many people we may have murdered in our stories, and I think Adam and I are on a watch list somewhere where the amount is probably like 6 or 9 figures long, isn't it? Something like that.
Jeez. Well, yeah, because I mean,
my book starts after the whole population of the world has been decimated. And there's like a very small percentage of people left. So yeah.
Right. I'm like, yeah, there's a whole massacre happening.
Yeah, my book focuses on about thousands of years in our future, but it happens after what they call the event. And basically, Earth is no more. Not at least as we know it.
Oh boy.
It's good. It's good to kill characters off. Especially if it's a character that that is going to be liked by the readers. But I don't think that you should just kill off any old character or feel like your character. So I'll start again. My brain was going, my mouth was going.
Let me explain how I like killing people again. Sorry about that. It didn't come across.
I can hear the sirens. I'm in danger over here.
Oh my gosh. Danger Will Robinson.
We see if you've got a character that you want to kill off, but you're going to kill them off just for the sake of it because it sounds dramatic, it's not going to have the same weight to it as an unexpected death that actually drives the story forward, that gives the protagonist or lead characters a goal to kind of get over or whatever.
I heard a funny line once that was like, I am vehemently opposed to the maiming and murdering of people unless it's essential to the plot.
I think that's true, because if you start killing off I suppose actually it depends really, because I've had to kill off loads of people, but they don't exist in the book. They just happen to have been killed off prior to the story. Oh, sorry, Tree. I'm sorry. Oh no!
Knock over a plant? Oh.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
That was not essential to the story. That was not essential to the story, Jules.
If you can't tell, I am a bit of a plant mad person. I have over 100 plants in my house, which my son's just agreed to. That monstera is real behind me. That's not a fake one. But this plant that's right next to me that I've just knocked this off of it's a recovering plant. It wasn't very well, and it was almost dead, and I've managed to bring it back almost, and now I've chopped its hand off.
Jamie Lannister.
I am. Yeah. Yes, Jamie. That's a good name for the plant. I like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that was me being dramatic. You see, I'm throwing my arms all over the place. Now I have got some images that I thought would be nice to put up to celebrate your work. Let me see. I've got stabs here. Hang on. This is your front.
Look at that.
I thought it'd be nice to show it off a little bit. It's a really lovely picture on the front.
Thank you. I had a Chica Art from Instagram was my cover artist for that.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
It's really cool.
I was going to ask the same question. Yeah.
And they are working on my book 2 on this month, hopefully.
Yay.
It's really cool you've got the same person doing it, because then they look like they match, that you've got a series. That's why I've got to change my front covers for this series, because I've got a different artist, so it's not going to work. But no, that's a really cool front cover. I really like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and super sexy Goblin King there. He's very yummy. Even though
red
green.
cap with this red cap. Yeah, I like his green skin.
Wait, what do you mean even though he's green? What do you mean even though he's green?
I didn't say even though.
Is it not green?
I heard that.
I didn't say even though. I love it. Did you say that, Jules? Did you? Shame on you.
I heard that.
I'm sorry, I'm not racist against green people. Honestly, I like green people.
Sure, you have green friends, I'm sure.
I like green. It's my favorite color.
Oh my God.
I'm sure I'm really good to green stuff. That's a really cool front cover. Okay, and I've also got this one.
There's a dragon.
I love it. He looks slightly shocked but also quite hungry at the same time.
With his big eyes.
He's making the matzah.
Yeah.
All the art for this holiday series is done by Jonathan Borello, who does his own comics called Barb and Haunted Safari. So if you like this, I recommend you check that out. I don't write that series, but we do write this one together.
That's really
That is
cool.
so cool.
And I love the way you got the dragon forming the S. That's really cool.
That was John's deal, because he always does 2 or 3 different covers, and this was the one that I picked. This one I liked very much because the other ones didn't have the little Trogdor like dragon doing the fire. They had a different dragon on the side.
I also like the fact that it's not a true kiln or oven or wood oven, because it's actually got like a little cord attached to it. So it's almost like
the cord is this because it's the dragon doing the fire.
Oh, that's right.
That's what it is. Okay,
Oh,
he's
that's
leaving
very
the fire
cool.
from the back of the book. That's hilarious.
He's feeding the fire into the oven.
That's
Oh,
really
that is really cool. I love that. That's so clever. All right, then you need to sort of make sure you're all sitting down and got a drink next to you for this one.
Ooh, watch out.
Book 2 is now in pre-sales. Hoo, hoo, hoo.
Your first book's called Trapped, isn't it? So this is following on
Yes.
from the first book.
Who do you think of as that on the cover? Is it one in your mind? Is it one of the 4 main characters, or is it just a beautiful?
If I had to choose, surprisingly, I would say Naomi. And I would say Naomi because of a scene that I actually wrote for Naomi in book 2. So yeah, there's some play behind that one.
Nice.
Interesting. So who would you say is on the front cover of the other one then? Let me see if I can find that.
You know something? I really didn't even give it a thought, to be honest with you. But I feel like maybe Stephanie.
All of us thought it was you. All of us.
I definitely agree. This is you posing. Definitely.
I've gotten this question from several people, and I'm like, no, it's not me. It's really not.
Sure.
It is not, I promise. And look, and if you don't believe me, on the spine of the book is the actual person that's on this cover.
Okay.
So, I can prove it.
Yes, we've seen your carnival outfits.
Look, and 2 more to go this year. So yeah.
We want pictures. Definitely want pictures. Let's see. Adam, I've got your starting end, but I don't have the other one. But I'm reluctant to show that one because that's a work in progress at the moment.
Okay.
But if you're happy to show that one, I can do. So it's entirely up to you. I'll leave that one down to you to make that decision.
What? No, that's okay. We'll save it. That's fine.
We'll save it. Okay.
The cover is very ambiguous. It's just a pretty image. It doesn't tell anything about the story at all.
Which is what I love, because there's so much going on.
Oh my god, yeah. I really wish I'd been a fly on the wall when the editor read that first page.
It was kind of like, okay, so there.
It just jumps right in. There's no second guessing. No,
I did not pre-warn her at all. Literally, so yeah, I would have loved to have been there when she started reading it, because I bet her face would have been like,
yeah, I warned everyone. Anyone that's beta read it, I warned everyone a lot in advance.
Oh yeah,
did you? I see. I was mean. I was just like, here you go, read that. Off you go, have fun. I've got a little montage of my ones, but these are still work in progress covers. So that's my ones. The collapse, they what you call it? Oh god, it's as part of the anthology. So that's going to be one of the short stories that go along with the background. So, and Of Blood and Bow is book 3. So, but they're work in progress covers at the moment. So, just as a holder, because I haven't got these ones, so electronically. So there you go. Anyway, we have come to the end of our show. I've had a really good time. It's been really cool. I really enjoyed myself. And you definitely are invited back again, both of you. Really enjoyed having you here.
If the FBI don't get me first.
You're very welcome to come back on here, and I hope you found that this is a nice community to be part of, and we want to try and build our community and spread the word, and I'll get Adam to send you the Discord links as well if you want to join them. Hey, you're a star. There's no pressure, you don't have to join, but it is only for writers, authors, poets, and beta readers, and that's it. Anyone else is not allowed. But the whole idea is basically a friendly community where people with like minds, in terms of understanding the writing process and the trials and tribulations that go along with it and everything. So just basically be there to support and be part of a community that is geared towards that craft, and and to just have fun and to commune with other people. So anyway, I'm going to say a massive thank you to all of you, especially to our wonderful guest authors today, who are definitely invited back on again. And also so much to both my wonderful co-hosts, who I love to pieces. And I will see you all very, very soon. Take care. See you next week.
Bye. Thanks for having.